Coming up on Currently, Beth Milligan is walking us through election results, new East Bay developments, and the latest retail and restaurant roundups. That's ahead on Currently. Welcome to Currently, where we break down the top local stories shaping our community. I'm your host, Crystal Frost, joined by Traverse City Ticker's head reporter, Beth Milligan, as we take you behind the headlines and into the stories that matter most. This podcast was recorded on Thursday, August 6th. The Tigers are 55 and 59 in the AL Central as I continue to mourn the loss of Scooby in the trade deadline. Meanwhile, your Traverse City Pittsburghers are 42 and 27, still first overall in the Great Lakes East. Support for Currently comes from West Shore Bank. When you choose West Shore Bank, you're not just choosing a bank, you're choosing a partner committed to the well-being of our community, and you can visit them on 8th Street today or at westshorebank.com. Beth Milligan, head writer, Traverse City Ticker, and my co-host partner in this crime we call news. That just rolled off the tongue. That wasn't. I didn't even
call news. It's on my business card. Yes,
this crime we call news. Have you been?
I've been good. I'm a little tired. Election week tends to throw off my sleep schedule because election night is very night. Election night is like a time-honored, like Super Bowl sort of tradition for journalists.
Yeah.
And so it's fun. I'm usually texting my other colleagues who I know are up late working on things as well. But it does usually mean like going to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the week is kind of
and the news
kilter.
Never stops.
Yes.
Yeah. So you feel like you're playing catch up. And this was a really, I would say that the primaries, notably in years past, haven't been as. Not a lot of people have voted in some of them.
Yeah, they tend to not have as much turnout as in a presidential election.
Right. This participation was pretty high, though.
Yeah, and a big part of that was the reason I had to stay up so late on Tuesday into Wednesday morning was because of our Senate race.
Yes.
In the Democratic primary specifically, on the Republican side, Mike Rogers was running unopposed, but on the Democratic side, we obviously, of course, I'm sure most folks will have known or voted even in the Abdul El-Sayed and Haley Stevens race. And that was, I was watching, it was interesting, CNN was fully focused on Michigan. So even the national outlets were really paying attention closely to our state. And when I finally had to call it at 3 a.m. because the ticker was about to go out, it goes out at 3:30 in the morning. It was still neck and neck. It was too close to call. They didn't end up calling it until I want to say about 9 or 10 a.m. the next day for Abdul. But that was a really, really tight race. And so that's going to be obviously the one that everyone's going to be watching this fall. This is the seat that Gary Peters decided not to seek a third term for. So in Michigan being a swing state, purple state, Republicans are hoping to pick up that seat from Democrats. Democrats obviously want to hold it and defend it. And now you've got two very different candidates in Mike and Abdul, and already the, kind of shots across the bow are starting to happen in the campaign ads this week.
Yeah, they had those ads ready to go.
Yeah, and I think it's not even just what was interesting about this particular Senate race was not even just the Republican Democrat, which you're used to, of course, but where sort of I think this race is embodying something interesting about what the future of the Democratic Party is going to look like. Where Haley was kind of more of an establishment candidate, she had the backing of a lot of other establishment Democrats. Abdul is a little more progressive, kind of in more of the Bernie Mamdani range, and was vastly outspent by Haley Stevens and still managed to win.
Yeah, I was reading that Haley Stevens received $70 million from AIPAC.
It was one of the most expensive races that we've ever had in Michigan Senate history, for sure. So now it's going to be interesting to see, what happens. I will say, I think for those that I was seeing in the Democratic Party, they have already sort of circled around Abdul. Haley conceded very quickly, offered her support. So it does seem like Democrats are attempting to sort of rally around and present a united front because Mike, has the strong support of the Republican establishment. So that's going to be an interesting one. So that was one race. We also had, and a couple others to touch on quickly, Jocelyn Benson, as she defeated her primary opponent, Chris Swanson. So she is the Democratic nominee for the governor's race. She will be facing John James, who is endorsed by Donald Trump. He also fought off his primary opponent, so it's going to be the two of them for the governor's race this fall. We also had in the 1st district, which covers our district, where Jack Bergman is the U.S. representative. He is going on again to the ballot this fall as a Republican candidate. Callie Barr will be the Democratic challenger, and that will be a repeat of 2024. Those two faced off in 2024. So Callie defeated some of her Democratic rivals there. That will be another interesting one. You know, Bergman won that election pretty handily the last time around. It is a Republican sort of stronghold district, especially with the Upper Peninsula. But she has been campaigning very vigorously and has some notable people like Pete Buttigieg behind her. So we'll see how that one goes. And then, and just a couple other local races we'll mention. The 37th, John DeMoose, unchallenged as a Republican. He goes to the primary. He's the incumbent. Kate Gallup of Cedar, who is a newbie, was going up against Mitch Treadwell for the Democratic nominee. Yes. He's a city commissioner. Kate did win, so she will be the Democratic nominee there. And then the other races, some of our incumbents like John Roth and Betsy Kofia didn't have any primary challengers, so they're going forward and facing a single opponent this fall as well. The other thing I just want to mention that was notable was Fife Lake Village.
Yes.
The residents there narrowly rejected disincorporating. They had an initiative on the ballot that would have essentially ended the village as a legal entity. It would have stopped being a village. They would have been absorbed into the township. That would have been his kind of history making. We haven't seen that really in Michigan before. It did require 2/3 of the voters who came out to the polls to pass that, and it was a 52-48 against. So they weren't even a majority in favor of it, but they didn't certainly meet that 2/3 margin. So that was pretty much it. We had some local millages for emergency services in Grant, Paradise, and Green Lake townships, and we did have some straightforward operating school millages for Buckley and Kingsley that went through as well.
Well, good election coverage. You did it.
I'll catch up on sleep, this weekend or when I'm dead. Someday.
Yeah, when I'm dead. How about that? It was really interesting just kind of going back to specifically to the race with Haley Stevens and Abdul. I noted a lot of national attention leading up to that, even to the point where one of my favorite podcasts, The Daily from the New York Times, they had covered it extensively the day before the election or the day of the election. It was very, it was just interesting to see so many eyes focused on Michigan.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's because it not only has ramifications for the Senate makeup, which is really tight and really important right now, and that's going to be on the agenda this fall for the midterms, whether Trump still has control of that. But also, again, what these kind of candidates say about the future of the Democratic Party. Yeah,
very, very interesting stuff. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some East Bay developments and then a retail and restaurant news roundup. But first, a word for our lead supporter, West Shore Bank. I want to ask you something. When was the last time your checking account surprised you? Like, in a good way. We all know the other bad surprises. Most checking accounts just sort of exist. They hold your money. They judge you and your impulse purchases. They ask you if you really do need that other squishmallow, and you say, yes, I do. But that's about it. West Shore Bank thinks your checking account should pull a little more of its own weight, and that's why they have their Shoreline High Yield Checking, which gives you the opportunity to earn more money on the things that you're already doing every day, right? So if you're spending money anyway, let's be honest, we're buying groceries and things aren't getting any cheaper. Their Shoreline Cashback Checking lets you earn cash back on every debit card purchase. And that, along with their high yield savings account, are two of those amazing things that offer convenience, digital banking, and easy access to your money, plus the kind of personal service that only comes from a community bank. One that's been serving Northern Michigan for generations. So if your checking account has been doing the bare minimum, it's time to upgrade. Stop by your local West Shore Bank branch or visit westshorebank.com to learn more. West Shore Bank Community Banking with modern solutions. Terms, conditions, and qualifications apply. Third-party data rates may apply. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. And we back, getting into the East Bay developments, which, wow, there's a lot going on.
Yes, there is. So this story ran earlier this week, and they have some updates from it because we had some meetings happen. So part of the story was about a proposed project out on US 31. This is a vacant, I think it's 4 or 5 acre parcel there between the Traverse City State Park and the Hampton Inn. This site has been vacant for many years. It's been proposed for a couple different projects in the past. Most recently, it was planned to be a Hyatt house. And that was a couple years ago and then kind of got put on hold during the pandemic.
Okay.
So the development team was back in front of East Bay Township planning commissioners this week. They had what's called a sketch plan review, which is kind of just an informal conversation where they say, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. Do you see any major flags with this project before we kind of put the money into doing a formal site plan application?
Okay.
So what's interesting about this project is obviously we have a lot of hotels in East Bay Township, so that wouldn't be particularly unique. It's a multi-use proposed project, though. So there is a hotel, and the developers did say at the meeting this week that it would be a Hyatt. But the idea is that there'd be one wing of the property that's the hotel. There would be a common lobby and swimming pool area in the middle, and then the other wing would be an apartment complex.
Well,
Which is so a mix of hotel and apartment uses, which is interesting. That's a little bit unusual for our area, although they did say that they're seeing this as a more popular concept in tourist communities.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a need for housing in the area, including rental apartments. And there are a lot of people who wouldn't mind having a view of the bay and the Traverse City State Park beach across the street from their apartment. So that's the plan for that. There's also a plan for a new restaurant on the property, some retail space, and then rooftop decks for both wings that would overlook the bay. Another unique thing for this project that I haven't really seen in other East Bay developments before is that the building would be on stilts, not like the stilts we think of like on the East Coast.
Oh,
so
sure,
like,
sure.
But like it essentially just means raised. It would be raised so that there would be underground parking at grade on the ground level. So parking underneath and then the upper kind of area.
Wow.
So if you think maybe of like the annex at the Park Place, how that sort of extends over parking, it's that kind of concept. They said they were trying to maximize the space, trying to be creative. I didn't really hear any concerns from the Planning Commission. They seem pretty supportive. They actually like the multi-uses. That's something that the East Bay District is trying to do, is not just have a hotel, but have like public components, like a restaurant. So we will probably see that project come back pretty soon. It sounds like they were hoping to break ground next spring, so they're trying to get their approvals and then construction drawings done.
And when I was a kid, I always wanted to live in a hotel. Like 100%, just definitely. Wasn't there like a Sweet Life of Zach and Cody or something on Disney?
There was also like, there was a very famous kids book about the girl who lived in that hotel.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And we don't know, but I just remember, maybe I had read that book or something, but I remember very much wanting to live in a hotel. So there is a part of me that's like, ooh. Eloise.
Thank you.
Thank you, producer Jordan.
Her name was on the tip of my tongue.
Eloise.
So, the other actual thing I just want to mention about this development is because there's been so much interest in a pedestrian bridge on 31 to replace the one that went down at the state park. I just want to let folks know that the DNR is in the process right now of studying that stretch to see if there's a stretch that would be good for either a bridge or an underground tunnel, although I think they're leaning towards a bridge. And this hotel site, this new one, the owner said they're completely open to partnering in that. So this is a potential site for a new pedestrian bridge as well.
Well, it's a great idea, too. I mean, not only with the 112 rooms that they have planned for this site, but also 110 apartments, up to 3-bedroom units. So you're talking about families. I mean, it's a great idea.
Yeah. The other part of the East Bay story that will affect folks who are out that way pretty immediately on that side of town is the 3 Mile and Hammond work.
Yes.
So we have multiple projects happening around the 3 Mile and Hammond area. One of them is the Safe Routes to School project. So this is nearly $2.7 million in new sidewalk and non-motorized infrastructure out there. So they're creating trails all along kind of the 3 Mile Hammond corridor that will connect like the library, Cherry Knoll, St. Elizabeth, the schools all in there. That work has already begun. People will be seeing, like flags and reduced speeds, lane shifts, things like that. So that construction's happening. The road itself, as well as the intersection, is also being reconstructed.
Ooh, and it needs it.
It needs it. I know it's this is the trade-off of our traffic season is it comes in the summer when traffic is the busiest and people don't like the backups, but it's also when you can realistically do road work. It's too cold in the other time of year. So what I really want to flag for folks is next week, so starting on Monday, that 3 Mile and Hammond intersection will be completely closed. You will not be able to get through that intersection. So that's a big intersection for that side of town.
Yes.
And it's probably going to be closed for the week. That's about a week is how long they need because they're going to be redoing the signal in the intersection.
Okay.
There. So if you're in that area, you can go to either the Road Commission Facebook page, or we also shared it to our page on the ticker. We have the detour information. It's primarily using Garfield and South Airport to get around there. The businesses around there, like Olson's and the gas stations, are open, but just know you kind of have to come from certain directions to get into Olson's because you couldn't come for like up 3 Mile, for example, because you can't get through the intersection there. So you'd have to come either from the east or the south. So
I thought you were. I honestly thought for a second that you were going to say, if you find yourself in this area, and then you said, of course, you can go to the Facebook page and figure out their detours. I was just thinking you just lay on your back and put your arms up like a turtle.
You'll just have to
live there.
Wait by the side of the road for a week.
Right. And camp out and it'll be okay.
So that part is only a week to get the intersection done. Then it will open, but there will be still work happening because Hammond's being redone between Carlisle and Town Line. So you will still see closures and impacts in there, but at least the intersection will reopen. All of the work is expected to be done by mid-September. They know the schools are opening. They're trying to get things done. But just expect impacts the next month or so there.
I want to just note one thing when it comes to the Safe Routes for Schools project. You have the number in your story of 2,400 students attending those 4 East Bay Township schools. They're going to be connected to being able to find a safe route to walk to school, to ride their bike, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, because obviously the roads there are fast and there's a ton of traffic. And there's also how many students you mentioned. So, the larger plan is eventually for these new sidewalks and trails to be connected to the 3 Mile Trail, the TART Trail, which is planned to be extended from South Airport Road up to Hammond. The TART Trail, folks are actually, that project is set for next year, the TART extension. And I would just mention next Thursday on the 13th, they have a fundraising campaign kickoff for that at GT Distillery at 4:30. So if folks want to check that out. And also as part of this project, there is a new plaza going in next to True North. True North provided an easement for that. And that plaza is part of this work this year. And that's going to have things like, some public artwork, some signage, seating, picnic tables, a fix-it station for bikes, things like that.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that information. Now let's move on to talking about the retail and restaurant news roundup. Always some movers and shakers out there, and you're covering all of them. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah. So the first part of this story, which was today as we're taping Thursday in the ticker, yesterday for folks listening on Friday, the first part of it was about the shopping centers of Garfield Township, which we have sort of thought for many years were kind of dying, and now they're seeing some new life. Of course, the Cherryland Center has seen a lot of new life, but we had a couple of things mentioned at Logan's Landing, where the new Shorts Brewing Company tap room is going in. There's a new outdoor gear consignment and resale store going in there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting fit for this market. We obviously have a lot of outdoor enthusiasts in northern Michigan here, and this is like a consignment shop specifically focused on that kind of like recreational camping outdoor gear. It's called Second, Third, First Hand, which if you see it in print, 231, our area code 231 hand, that is supposed to be opening this fall. So that will probably be a nice fit for what Shorts is doing, which is, not only having a tap room there, but encouraging kind of the activation of the loop and people getting out and on bikes and around. So that's one. We also talked about at the Grand Traverse Mall, a new restaurant going into the food court there called Cluckery TC.
The logo is legit,
which is in the story.
And I don't know what's happening to that poor chicken. Is it on fire?
He's on fire and he's breathing fire.
Because he's fried.
Because he's fried.
Because he's a fried chicken.
He's a fried chicken.
Okay.
And that's fitting because the restaurant will specialize in fried chicken sandwiches, both classic and spicy, along with things like hand-battered chicken strips, fries inside. When I talked to Zending, who's part of the partnership team there, what I thought was interesting was his family has owned a massage parlor in the mall for a long time. And he sort of talked about the decline of the Grand Traverse Mall, but also how, and this is true, I know for you and me, for many people, how it's like has this nostalgic appeal because so many of us like grew up there and would just like hang out with our friends. And so there are a lot of major tenants who are planned to be coming to that property soon, all the way from Chipotle to the redevelop of Macy's, which is supposed to have some big national retail stores coming in. So he really kind of felt optimistic. He's like, I wanted to do this. I know like the mall food court isn't like exactly doing like the greatest right now, but he's like, my family is here and I have a lot of nostalgic memories. And he's kind of banking on, I think people are going to start coming back. And I hope, essentially when I'm one of the reasons that they do. So
that's really cool. Also, again, with the logo, very cool.
Very cool.
And I love fried chicken.
So we'll go check it out, get some fried chicken. And then our third Garfield Township Mall, the Cherryland Center, Pete Away just opened over there by Starbucks. I haven't been there yet. I will say the people who have gone, I think have started a cult.
Yeah. Anybody who, if you've experienced Pete Away, which I've talked to a lot of people who love it, they were losing their minds about this. Yeah. It was kind of amazing. And I am on that side of town quite a bit for work. And I've been looking at it like, oh, when's it going to open? And it's happening.
It's open.
So we have to go there.
So for folks who don't know, it's kind of like a Mediterranean concept. They have like build your own bowls. They have curry and lentil soup. So the idea, I think, is, it's like a healthy alternative to fast food. And there are people who have like been commenting on the page that they've gone like multiple times in the 1 week it's been open and just love it. So we'll have to check that one out.
But it's also like a fast casual, which I'm into fast casual restaurants.
Yeah.
Where, I can just come in my sweatpants.
Yeah. You could put on jeans, but if you want to wear your sweatpants.
I need my sweatpants. If I'm building my own bowl of Mediterranean food.
You need some stretch. You need some
I got to get my stretch on.
So put on your sweatpants, go to Pete Away.
You could wear some jeans.
Thanks
for that judgment.
It's a gentle encouragement as a friend, but you know what? Also, your sweatpants are fine. Also at the Cherryland Center, we just mentioned, because a lot of people have been asking about K1 Speed. Yeah. They said they were temporarily closing, I'm using air quotes for people who are listening, in early June, but they have not reopened. I think behind the scenes there have been some issues going on with the franchise management of that.
Okay.
I did talk to the corporate PR person for the national company, and they said that they are now in the midst of finalizing a new agreement that would make the TC location corporate owned.
Oh.
So they did plan to have K1 back open in the next couple of weeks. So folks will know that.
Okay.
We mentioned Altitude Trampoline Park.
Love
just
that
because,
place.
I know a lot of families are super into that.
Yes.
And also adults.
Well, I take children with me.
Well, you don't
sometimes.
Have to. You can wear your sweatpants.
I do. You have to wear your sweatpants when you're bouncing, okay? And when you're eating.
Yeah. So the only thing we mentioned with Altitude is that they have been, kind of in this little bit of a struggle with the township because they have a condition, and it was well known when they were approved. It was clearly stated to them that part of the approval is that they had to put new sidewalk in along South Airport Road. This is a kind of requirement for mall tenants coming online to make sure that there are connected sidewalks throughout that area. They have argued that they're just a tenant there and it shouldn't be their responsibility.
They don't own the building.
They don't own the building. The property owner is not responsive, has not done it. So it is their job as a tenant because of the site approval.
Right.
So it's been a little tricky. The Planning Commission did not give them a waiver. They are required to do the sidewalk. However, I talked to the township and they are not going to kick them out or anything. They're trying to work with them. So just know it's a little bit messy behind the scenes. They're trying to work on it, but Altitude is still open. It will remain open.
Listen, there will be a lot of very, very sad children and grandparents and parents, people in sweatpants, if they do end up having to close that, because I have been there several times with my grandkids, and it is very well attended.
Yeah.
Like, it is bustin'. And it reminds me of the old Skate World days, because there's a section where, I mean, I have little grandkids, so I can't like just let them go play.
Yeah.
But there are parents that are there that are just sort of like on their phones, and the kids are all just jamming out to, with the trampolines.
Yeah.
And they have, there's someone who is like working from the trampoline park, and I'm like, you go.
Yeah.
I mean, for our parents, we would just
They would
dropped
just
off.
drop you off, sometimes overnight at Skate World.
Literally.
At a very young age with no adult supervision.
No supervision.
But that was the 80s, baby.
It was the
a different
80s.
time.
No supervision. And then you would just try to find a place to sleep by the nacho bar.
Yep.
It was
I would sleep on a
weird
bench,
time.
definitely with my little skates dangling off the...
They used to do those lock-ins. Now, Altitude is not doing that. You have to have parental, supervision. You can't just be out there on your own. But
the 80s anymore.
I'm telling you, it does have that vibe, though, where the parents are like, oh, sweet relief. And the children are just
like,
jumping.
And also, like, you just, like, get all their energy out, just jumping like maniacs.
Yes.
And, like,
It's very fun. I love
so
it.
that's all over there. And the last one we mentioned was Two Brothers, which is a new dog park that's under construction there. If you've seen, the people building on the north side of the mall there, that's because that's that cafe. And that is still under construction, but targeting a fall opening.
A dog park.
Yeah,
I
so
love
those are
it.
our mall updates.
That sounds great.
Very quickly, I'll just mention the last couple of things, which were, we talked about the Mill District, which is off Woodmere Avenue by Boardman Lake. That's under construction now. That new project over there that has like condos. It's going to be the new headquarters of Brick Wheels. We did a couple new details this week that there's going to be a coffee shop there called The Loop. That's going to be opening next spring. There's also going to be a restaurant, and the Brick Wheels ownership team has the liquor license for that, so they'll be kind of overseeing this new restaurant that said it would have 100 to 150 seats, have both indoor and outdoor seating on a deck overlooking the kind of Boardman Lake Trail area. It's near the lake there. So that's also coming. And we mentioned a few just updates around town. Acme Township, which has been taking about a year to approve this project, just approved a new Taco Bell.
Ooh.
At the corner of 72 and 31 there was a lot of concerns about how the traffic and stacking would work there, so they had to work through that. They were sort of like, they gave Taco Bell the approval, but they were like, if your drive-through lines mess up traffic, you will be in trouble. So they look like they're moving pretty fast to construction. They've already pulled a land use permit for that. And then downtown, we mentioned a couple things downtown. The pub on Cass and Front has a new expanded space called the Pub Annex. It's kind of a private rental event space, but it's also overflow when they're busy, like during the World Cup or for football games this fall. We mentioned Lee Studio, which is a new artwork studio on Cass Street in Old Town, and also, kind of the end of an era for a lot of us TC natives, old timers here, is J&S Hamburg got torn down.
I
last
had
week.
like a real emotional reaction to that.
Yeah, just
like,
seeing that claw in the middle of it and being like, I spent so many late nights there when it used to be open till
and breakfasts and lunches, and God, I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, so that got torn
late
down.
nights.
That is gone, RIP. That is going to be a new project called Bella Vita at 302. I think what was interesting about this for just TC folks who just knew it as this little, diner with, cheap breakfast, affordable, is that, the condos have been listed for sale there, are quite expensive, 2.2 to 3.4 million. These are going to be very high-end luxury condos.
Yeah.
However, I will also say for folks who kind of like that site, there is a public component to it, which is the ground floor. The first floor will be a wine bar and a retail shop. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
excited about that. I also want to note, too, with the Mill District, there are 4 condos that are going to be for sale there. You noted in your story that they're already, people are buying. These look like cool condos, by the way.
Yeah. So we have a link in the story. It's interesting. I think they said the project team, when I talked to them, Keen Technical Solutions is part of the team behind this. They said they haven't even listed them officially on the market, but they have begun the condo sales process. We do have a link in our story to the Mill District website, which is kind of cool to look through if you want to just also sort of get a sense of like what the whole development will look like, because there will be all these public pieces like outdoor rental and retail, the coffee shop and the restaurant.
It's wonderful. So before we go, we like to talk about what we're up to and maybe plug a few things for the week. What are you excited about this week?
Well, I kind of want to let you talk about one of the things because I know you're very excited about something we're doing together this weekend.
We are. And so I will start. As if you're listening to this on Friday, Beth and I are likely at the Tori Amos concert, and she is playing at the Fox Theater in Detroit. I have had just a love of this woman for probably since I was 14 years old. I loved her when I was a teenager. I went to several concerts when I was a teenager as well. And literally, like 3 of those concerts, I was in the literal back row. Because I was just a very, very poor child who wanted to go see Tori Amos. And I was able to do it. So this time around, as a woman who's getting closer to 50, it's a very interesting experience because I love her. I still love her music. I know all of her music. But listening to it when you're in your 40s is a lot different than when you're 14, 15.
It's different.
It does hit different. I've been downloading, as I say. I just listen to her all the time for the last couple of weeks. And I have found myself feeling a little more angsty. So I'm wondering if I'm reverting back to my teenage years.
She's bringing that out.
She's bringing that out in me.
Well, her music is very, I've been listening to the new one, In Times of Dragons, and it's great. And it's moody.
It's moody.
Yeah.
She's ethereal. It's very moody. She's one of the most accomplished pianists I've ever, she's just extraordinary. And I look at all of her set lists because she's on this tour and she's playing everything, like everything from Little Earthquakes to In Time of Dragons, which is her latest album. So I'm excited. There was one thing that I wanted to mention as well, and I don't know if you're up for this, but when I was about 17 years old, I went to see her in Grand Rapids. And I stood outside like I did every concert to try to catch a glimpse of her when she was getting on her bus. And it actually happened. I was able to touch her. And she said, "Hey, babe."
Well, you could just put
it was amazing.
In the bank for the rest of your life.
Right. And she's just like, "Hey, babe." And I was like, "Ah." And then I don't even know how I got home. I don't know how I got home. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm still.
Maybe you're still there.
There right now. Yeah. So we're really excited about that. You, myself, and our friend Aaron are going along with my husband, Jordan, who's also a fan of Tori. This is how you know he's a good man. Yes.
It's going to be a fun one. Yeah. Definitely excited for that trip. And I love going to Detroit, which we've done together several times. So it's always a good time. When I come back this weekend, the other thing I was excited about is the National Writers Series, which is on Sunday this time around at the City Opera House. And Gregory Stock is the author. And I'm interested in this one because he is writing about AI. AKA my mortal enemy.
Yes. Not a fan this one.
Not a fan of AI. However, I also feel an obligation as a human who is alive in this now AI-dominated world and also a journalist. I do read about it. I do study it. I do learn a lot about AI. It's affecting my industry just like it's affecting everyone else. So I am interested in it. And he has written a book about it. And he sent what I thought was interesting about this event is they sent a survey out ahead of time that he's getting data from the customers coming to the event on Sunday about how they like AI or think about AI. He's going to share some of that feedback, but it seems like a really interesting conversation.
That sounds like a really interesting one. So people can find tickets on the National Writers Series website?
Yes, nationalwriterseries.org on Sunday night.
I also want to mention the Northwestern Michigan Fair. Love the fair. It kicks off on Sunday the 9th, and it's kicking off with a pancake breakfast at 8 a.m. So that's actually always fun. I am at the age now where I love a good pancake breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm just like, sign me up. All right. I don't know who's cooking it, but sign me up.
I would never have guessed with the podcast company of Pancake Boy Productions that you might like pancakes. I know Jordan does.
Yeah, we might like pancakes. But I do want to I want to just point out my nephew Hunter has been in 4-H probably since he could walk. He has done everything from the still shows. So, he's grown vegetables. He's done art projects. He has been in the dog show, which is usually on the Sunday, with his dog Blue. He's also had many different animals, and this year he has a pig named Gerald. And so Swine Day and that first sort of leg of the competition is on Monday. So you might see Hunter out there with his pig Gerald, who's a good-looking pig, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's, in the words of Charlotte's Web, that's some pig. He's really a good-looking pig. And Hunter he's 13 now, and he's an old pro at this because he's been doing it since he's like 6. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and I know the fair is in the process of transitioning from a 4-H fair to like more of a youth fair where it will be open to more youth to participate. So I've been seeing a lot of like posts within the fair community about that. And I think from the public facing perspective of going on rides and eating carnival food, it won't make much of a difference. But I know that is a pretty significant shift for how the fair operates and should potentially open it up to more students and kids to participate.
Meaning really you don't have to be a part of a 4-H club in order to be participate in the fair, which I think it's good. It opens it up, especially if you're in a really rural area and you don't have a club. I think it's pretty good. Another thing I want to mention for the fair is that bingo's back.
Oh.
Again, I think we should go out there. Play a little bingo.
The song. Going
B-I-N-G.
Oh,
going to the fair.
Every time I even hear the name
going to
of
the Northwestern Michigan Fair,
that song is in my head.
Yes, it's a great song. It won a Grammy. Did not win a Grammy. No, I'm just lying. But yeah, check everything out at northwesternmichiganfair.net if you'd like. And you'll definitely see me out there running with the goats, 8 o'clock at the Goat Barn.
Nice.
All right, thanks to Beth Milligan for another great episode of Currently. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all the platforms. You can do that at christalfrost.com. Follow us on social media. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can just Google up Christal Frost or Currently with Christal Frost. You'll find it there. You can watch our full show in full color. Ooh, Technicolor. On YouTube and on Facebook. Currently is a Compass local podcast produced by that Pancake Boy Productions in downtown Traverse City. Big thanks to our lead supporter, West Shore Bank. Start saving today at westshorebank.com.